lunar cycle really gives us an opportunity to think about how do we lay a blanket of enticements for life to want to return, for life to want to live. Welcome to the world of Dream Fruit. My name's Elizabeth Russell, and I am the creator of the world of Dream Fruit, and I am very excited to share with you a few things about the month ahead. What we're looking at today is the lunation that begins on May 16th and goes through June 13th of 2026. And we will have our full moon on May 31st. And we're going to talk a little bit about the story for this month. What we do inside of the world of Dream Fruit is we work with story and symbol. We work with the Sabian degree symbols along with the astrology of the moment. And we're really just unpacking the themes of the month through a more intuitive lens in a way that helps you find your own path through the terrain of the moment. Now, in the world of Dream Fruit, we work with a few basic pieces. We have a frame story, and that frame story tells us that our living earth has been imperiled and our creative nature is rising up. And inside the world of Dream Fruit, while these two things are true, we are all earthlings in training. We are on a shared mission to return to a sense of radical belonging. And what radical belonging is that sense of deep interrelatedness, that sense of the birthright bond that we all share with one another, with our own embodied experience, and with the larger, more than human world, including the cosmos. And so we are telling the story of earth and sky, and we're telling that story through image and symbol. So with that said, let's just dive in a little bit. What we're talking about during this lunation is love. We have a new moon in Taurus with a full moon in Sagittarius, and the Sabian degree symbol for this cycle is a Spaniard serenading his senorita. It's a very lovely, very endearing image for the month. And we also have our full moon image, which is 10 degrees of Sagittarius. And again, that's May 31st. And the Sabian degree symbol for the full moon of this lunation is the golden-haired goddess of opportunity. So we actually have a couple very sweet seed syllables for this lunar cycle, and I'm very excited to dig into that a little bit more with you. So let's start by considering what is a serenade. I took a minute to look into the etymology of the word serenade, and it does originate from Italian and Latin, and its root words really refer to evening, late in the day. So the sun has set, or it is setting, and the light is softening, and we know that the day is ending, and so there becomes this sort of, yes, a softening, but also a sense of longing. What do we want to comfort us through the night? And so the serenade is sort of our way of laying out an enticing call to our beloved. And inside the world of Dream Fruit, as I mentioned, we do have this frame story. Our living earth has been imperiled and our creative nature is rising up. On that scale, what we are seeing then is something that feels late in the day, and it feels more important than it did before to begin truly wooing what we love. And my hope is that what you are aware of loving is life on earth and life with earth, nature and the stars and the trees and the birds with their sweet, sweet songs. There's so much to love in our lives as earthlings. And so I feel like this lunar cycle really gives us an opportunity to think about how do we lay a blanket of enticements for life to want to return, for life to want to live, for a wild, flourishing future to rise up and move toward us. So one of the other things that we talk about inside the world of Dream Fruit is these enchanted pathways that support us on our journey toward our earthling nature, radical belonging. And I just want to mark these 3 pathways so that you have a sense of why we're doing what we're doing. First of all, we deal in nature-based time. And nature-based time is our way of remembering that we're organic, soft animal bodies that evolved here on our Mother Earth with this particular gravity, with this particular composition of oxygen and carbon dioxide and the breath that we exchange with the forests of the world and with each other. So we evolved here on this beautiful, beautiful blue pearl. So that is one thing. Nature-based time reminds us that time is not a linear, fixed progression. It's actually very circular, very squishy, very organic. And when we can remind our bodies of that, we are then refreshed in our sense of ourselves outside of the grid of the Gregorian calendar and back into the kind of circular breathing of the lunar cycles, of the sunrise and sunset, of the seasonal changes, even of the greater cycles in the sky, the astrological transits, the passages of time that our bodies are also recording and tracking. So nature-based time is a very valuable piece of our journey toward radical belonging. And that is why we tell the story moon by moon. And a second pathway is magical allies, animism, a fundamental remembering that we as humans are not the only ones here on this planet, that we share it with a very wise, sovereign, complex, diverse array of more than human life forms. The life of the soil, the life of the rivers, of the mountains. So as we remember that all of existence doesn't dwell only inside our brains, we remember that we are part of a living dance and that we can step into it. And then, of course, the third pathway is the pathway of the deep imagination. And this also is a way of us kind of returning to a deeper sense of what we are alive inside. The deep imagination is a way of hearing the song, the dream, the story of earth, sky, nature, cosmos. We have this ability to deepen our listening in such a way that we can tune into the synchronicities, the symbols, the moments of recognition, the dreams, the night dreams that we have, the day dreams that we have, and remember that we're alive inside a living story. And so this is why we tell the story of Dream Fruit. This is why we tell the lunar tales each month. It's a way of activating a different part of the brain so that we can make new choices as we follow along, using more of our perceptual sensibilities to frame our experience in a more lively way. So, with that said, I would love to share with you the story that we're looking at for this lunar cycle. And we tell the story, it's a very lunar punk, kind of weird. We do have magical allies show up in the stories that we tell in Dream Fruit Story Corner in our lunar tales. And often, you know, it's not just human. We don't want it to be. We want to be with family, with our kin. And our kin are certainly far more than just human. So that's one thing. And then what we can do is we can activate a different kind of listening to allow the story to sink in from a sort of a side door and allowing the kind of moon mind to become foreground and letting the more rational, quick to divide and sort and assess and analyze, letting that part of our mind sort of chill out Because honestly, if you look around the world right now, do you think that just the rational mind has gotten us all that we ever wanted or needed? And no, the answer is no. We need our whole brains. We need our whole consciousness. We need our whole family, our kinship, our active relatedness with the larger world in order to enter into this dance of reciprocity that really is what life on Earth offers us. So, yeah, having said that, we're going to just dip into the Lunar Tales for Earthlings. This is my very ratty copy of this year's Dream Fruit Eco-Punk, Lunar Punk story for 2026 for the 6th lunar cycle of 2026, beginning May 16th and taking us through June 13th of this year. So, and this is also the 3rd moon of spring. So we're completing our spring cycle with the courtship moon. And so we'll just sink in and settle into this little story for this particular cycle. In the dream of the courtship moon, we remember when the blessed goddess walked among us and we laid petals on the path at her feet. The separation myth lost its charm long ago, knowing only how to lay claim, relying on conquest, not invitation. Now we must fortify what we love with beauty. We must sing the songs of remembering. Our pulse quickens like bird wings as we lay out our best offerings. We court the forests, the deep waters, the wide prairie, desert, tundra, and glade with tender attentions. And are we courted in return by the wild itself? And can the holy land bond be restored? Yes. Shine up your feathers, for you are the world loving herself. Woo the wild future. Shine up your feathers, for you are the world loving herself. Woo the wild future. So, yeah, I love the dream of the courtship moon. I mean, we've gone through a whole thing this year in the kind of dreamscape of our moons, and where we have been, I mean, we've been kind of growing wings and seeing more colors than we normally can. We also, just last month, it was the exposure moon where we flipped the script. Because we showed up to, I don't know if you remember in the story, we kind of all arrived at this tent that had created this congregation spot in the deep magical forest. But when we got there, we found that the Lady of the Light, you know, with all the colors, had gone missing, and we didn't know where she'd gone. And we ourselves found that there was sort of this false light that was attracting people to this show, but that the show was not, it was not what we came for. The Lady of the Lights, of the colored lights, was gone, and we all show up, but it was sort of like a trap. And as we became mesmerized by the lights, our colors started fading away. We became weaker and weaker. And it wasn't until we were able to just send out the faintest of beacons that the nature sprites, the wood sprites, realized the danger that was at hand. And they came and they showed up with this body dance and kind of activated us in a new way. Well, we, of course, were taking our courageous steps forward and showing up. Even though we weren't prepared, we brought our own story and our own delight to that moment. Okay, so I'm just recapping, because look at what happens. When those wood sprites show up, they bring this sort of playful, also a little bit sexy, a little bit flirty energy to revive us from this depleting trance that is going on in the story. And so it is a flirtation that can call something forward. And I want to just look at that a little bit here in the courtship moon. And in this dream of the courtship moon for this month, first of all, we remember when the Blessed Goddess walked among us and we scattered petals on the path at her feet. We remember. And then we also understand that we're in a time that's telling us a story of separation, that wants us to forget that the goddess once moved among us, that wants only to lay claim, not to invite, but relying instead on conquest. And it's in that context that we understand that we have to fortify what we love with beauty. We bring delight. We sing the songs of remembering. And that's when our pulse quickens like birds' wings, and we lay out our best offerings. We court the forests. We court the deep waters, the wide prairie, the desert, the tundra, the glade, all of this with our tender attentions. And then we discover that, yes, we are courted in return by the living earth, by the wild itself. And that's when we can imagine the Holy Land bond being restored, the love becoming requited, this exchange, this mutuality. And that's when we know, shine up your feathers, you are the world loving herself. So yeah, a little bit of love goes a long, long way. And we really want to think about what are the things that we can lay out that can attract something sweet into the world at a moment when the world so needs it, at a moment when the world has been drawn into this false story of separation. We want to sing these other songs, the serenade. As the night falls, as it grows darker, it becomes more necessary for us to woo what we love toward us, to call it toward us with a sweet, sweet song. So one of the things I'll mention is Pluto is retrograde. It will be for a little while. And this retrograde time really calls us into a deeper transformative moment. And Pluto does transform, but it does it through decay, destruction. It's the composter. Pluto will break things down in order to release fresh energy. So it is a kind of shadow process that Pluto asks us to do. But what it promises is a liberation of energy and a transformation. And it could be that there's a joyful transformation available to us as we tap into this retrograde period of time and let Pluto do its magic with us. So this is definitely the time to create these loving enticements and to call forth the heart of Gaia and her children. We also want to practice consent and adoration as we seek the attentions of our beloveds according to free will for the good of all. And then we adore what we seek. We adore what we're calling in. Some things to think about. This is a Taurus lunation, and so it's a great time to notice themes of natural resources, of finances, of your own personal resources. Those want to take the lead as you're setting intentions for this time, tuning into themes of comfort, of self-worth, of patience and pleasure and beauty. And also, we love to play with that allyship that I talked about a minute ago as one of the pathways to radical belonging, these magical allies. So think about what might be an ally for you that could help you keep these themes front of mind during this month. I'm thinking of Mirabai and Sappho, two of our finest love poets of antiquity. And, you know, an animal familiar, somebody that you love, songs of yearning. Here, the roses are blooming, so a long-stemmed rose might be a wonderful ally, or that wild rose bush in your yard might be a friend to you this month as a way of bearing in mind the themes of this month. So The other thing I wanted to mention is this goddess, the golden-haired goddess of opportunity at the full moon on May 31st. That full moon harkens back to December of 2024. In December of 2024, just mark that. Maybe you have notes if you're a journaler or if you're keeping your dream fruit journal. Each year, you'll be able to go back and see what was going on for you during what we called the Fortuna moon. And the goddess Fortuna brings her gifts and bestows her blessings. And so December of 2024, the new moon was at that exact same degree point that the full moon will be this month. So anything that was brewing for you back then, what shining graces you might have been imagining in December of 2024, you might check back in with those. We were asked at that time to open our eyes and make a wish. So maybe you did that. What wish might you have set forth for yourself in December of 2024 that might be returning now? Another thing that's happening here in the United States, we are having a Pluto return. We're having our 250th anniversary of this country. It is a time to think about renewing our vows. What would make the relationship that we have been developing for these last 250 years, what would make it more life-giving? What vows could we renew that would lead us toward a more flourishing world, a more perfect union, as they say? So, yeah, the bigger picture that's happening is this dissolution of the hyper-individualism that kind of carries the mythos of the United States, this sort of Marlboro man, I can do it alone, it's only me, I'm in charge of all of it, or, oh, I'm responsible for all of it. I need to recycle everything in order to save the world, So that hyper-individualism can go a lot of different ways, but we're really wanting to dissolve that story, let it break down, let it compost. Pluto is here as our ally to help us with that. And animate or woo a greater relatedness, something more consensual, something based in adoration, mutual care, connection, compassion. Yeah, so hopefully you get the idea. So the journal prompt for this cycle, how can you be an irresistible agent of a flourishing world? What is the song that you can sing that will woo a brighter, wilder future? Okay, so if you're curious, I do have a few copies of the Lunar Tales for Earthlings for this year still. I can send a copy to you. I only have a few, so if you really want one, you might want to just jump on my website and grab that. But aside from that, I look forward to seeing you next month with the next thrilling episode of our Lunar Tales for Earthlings inside the world of Dream Fruit. So June 14th, you can look for our next great adventure. Meanwhile, I hope it goes well for you and may it go well for us all.